Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students and viewers, Assalamu alaikum. I am Fayaz, Ahmad, teacher, HS Gundchabutra. In today's virtual class, I am going to teach the students of class 7th English, and our today's topic is class. But before going to the class, let us first discuss the structure of a sentence briefly. Dear students, every sentence that we speak or write has two parts, consists of two parts. The first is called the subject and the second is called the predicate. Now what is the subject? The words or word denoting the person or thing about which something is said is called the subject of the sentence. In other words, those words which denote the person about whom we are talking, they form the subject of the sentence. Now predicate, the word or words which say something about the person or thing denoted by the subject, is called the predicate. In other words, those words which denote what is said about the subject, those words form the predicate of the sentence. Now let's take an example in order to understand it. For example, Shabir writes a letter. This sentence, it consists of two parts. First is the word which shows about whom we are talking, Shabir. This is called the subject. And what are we talking about? The subject that forms the predicate. Writes a letter forms the predicate. In other words, we can say subject is the thing or person we talk about. Subject is the thing or person we talk about. Here we are talking about Shabir. So this forms the subject, because the thing or person we talk about is called the subject. And in predicate, something is said about the person or thing. Something is said about the subject. So those words which show us what is said about the subject, those words form the predicate. Here, these words, writes a letter, they form the predicate. In short, the first part of this sentence is the thing, place or person we talk about, and this part is called the subject. And in the second part of the sentence, something is said about the person, place or thing, so this part is called the predicate. Let's take another example. Bashir writes a letter. What are we talking about? We are talking about Bashir. So Bashir is the subject. I already said subject is the thing, person or place we are talking about. So here we are talking about Bashir. So Bashir is the subject. What are we talking about? Bashir writes a letter. So this is the predicate. As I said, in predicate, something is said about that person or thing. So here Bashir is the subject, writes a letter is the predicate. जिसके बारे में हम बात करते हैं उसको हम सब्जेक्ट, हियर हम किसके बारे में बात करते हैं? बशीर के बारे में. दिस इज द सब्जेक्ट. और बशीर के बारे में हम जो कहते हैं, दैट इज द प्रेडिकेट. हम इसके बारे में क्या कहते हैं? राइट्स अ लेटर. सो दिस इज द प्रेडिकेट. In the same way, the boy stood first in the class. Here what are we talking about? We are talking about the boy. So this is the subject. And what are we talking about this boy? That is the predicate. He stood first in the class. This is the predicate. हम boy के बारे में, लड़के के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं. So this is the subject. और उसके बारे में हम क्या कहते हैं? He stood first in the class. So it is the predicate. In the same way, I saw a fish in the water. किसके बारे में बात करते हैं? I मेरे बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, और हम मेरे बारे में क्या कह रहे हैं? Saw a fish in the water. So I here is the subject, and this saw a fish in the water becomes the predicate. In the same way, the sun shines brightly. So in this sentence, the sun shines brightly. We are talking about the sun, so this is the subject. And what are we talking about the sun? What are we saying about the sun? We say that it shines brightly, so this is the predicate. Now let us discuss what is clause. A clause is a sentence with a finite verb of its own, or in other words, a sentence with a finite verb of its own is called a clause. Or in other words, clause is a sentence having its own subject and predicate. इसीलिए मैंने आपको सब्जेक्ट और प्रेडिकेट के बारे में बताया. सो क्लॉज इज अ सेंटेंस हैविंग इट्स ओन सब्जेक्ट एंड प्रेडिकेट. जिसके दोनों सब्जेक्ट और प्रेडिकेट होते हैं उसको हम क्लॉज कहते हैं. फॉर एग्जांपल, बुशरा ईट्स एन एप्पल. हियर दिस इज द सेंटेंस. It has its own subject and predicate. Here we are talking about Bushra. So Bushra is the subject, and what are we saying about Bushra? That becomes the predicate. Eats an apple becomes the predicate, and this sentence, which has its own subject and predicate, it is called the clause. हम यहाँ बात कर रहे हैं बुशरा के बारे में. दिस इज द सेंटेंस, बुशरा ईट्स एन एप्पल. सो इस सेंटेंस में हम बात कर रहे हैं बुशरा के बारे में. सो बुशरा इज द सब्जेक्ट, और बुशरा के बारे में हम जो कह रहे हैं, ईट्स एन एप्पल, इट इज़ द प्रेडिकेट. सो दिस सेंटेंस, जिसके दोनों सब्जेक्ट और प्रेडिकेट होते हैं, दो सेंटेंसेस आर कॉल्ड क्लॉज. ऐसे सेंटेंस को हम क्लॉज कहते हैं. There are two types of these clauses. First is called the independent clause or main clause. Main clause, yeah, independent clause. Now what is this main clause or independent clause? We say that it can stand on its own without adding something to it. It can stand on its own without adding something to it. For example, put off your shoes. Put off your shoes if they are dirty. You can see here in this sentence there are two parts. First is the put off your shoes, and second part is if they are dirty. Here this part, you can see, if we does not write this part of the sentence, this part, put off your shoes, it has subtle meaning. It can stand. Put off your shoes, it can stand. So this part of the sentence, which can stand without adding something to it, this part of the sentence is called the main clause. आप देखें यहाँ, put off your shoes if they are dirty. अगर हम इसको erase भी कर दें, so this part of the sentence, it can stand. इसका फिर भी माने रहता है it can stand. ये जो पार्ट है जो जिसको कुछ ऐड करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है उसको हम कहते हैं मेन क्लॉज और इंडिपेंडेंट क्लॉज. नाउ सेकंड type of this clause is called the subordinate clause or dependent clause. Now what is the subordinate or dependent clause? We say it does not stand on its own until we add something to it. Let's take the same sentence. Put up your shoes if they are dirty. You can see here this part of the sentence, put up your shoes, it has subtle meaning whether we add this part of the sentence to it or not. But you can see here, if we cut this part of the sentence, if they are dirty, it cannot stand on its own. ये वाला पार्ट जो है if they are dirty, ये इसके बगैर, इस पार्ट के बगैर नहीं रह सकता. So this part of the sentence which cannot stand on its own until we add something to it, this part is called the subordinate clause. Subordinate clause. So here in short, clause is a sentence having its own subject and predicate. Subject and predicate we have already discussed. This clause, it has two types. First is the main clause or independent clause. Main clause, it can stand on its own without adding something to it. Example here, put up your shoes, it can stand without adding this part if they are dirty, whether we add it or not. This part of the sentence has subtle meaning, it can stand. This part is called the main clause. Now the subordinate clause is that which cannot stand on its own until we add something to it. You can see here this part of the sentence, if they are dirty, it cannot stand without adding this part of the main clause to it. Put up your shoes, without adding main clause to it, this part of the sentence cannot stand. So this part of the sentence which cannot stand on its own until we add something to it, this is called the subordinate clause.